Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I thought I would share a DIY that I have been wanting to make for so long now. This is a vintage inspired rustic bench. These can go for quite a bit online, so I thought I would try my hand at making one and save myself some money and then share the process with you guys as well. If you haven't found me on Instagram, you can find me at Valerie Aguiar. I share a lot of fun and behind the scenes there, some of our day-to-days too. So I started by going to Home Depot. I grabbed a 2x6 by 8 feet long Douglas Fir board. This was the cheapest they had at my Home Depot, so they may have something else cheaper close to you. And then I grabbed these are 2x2s. They're little pine boards and they're only a couple bucks a piece. So altogether the wood was under 20 bucks. And so I just made my stool right in the middle of my garage. Don't mind the mess. I measured my 2x6 to 56 inches long and just made a straight line so that I can cut that on my miter saw. If you are new to working with these types of tools, they can be intimidating at first, but I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it. It is a little bit of an investment, but they are worth every penny. So for the legs, you're going to need 4 legs and then 4 smaller pieces that are going to support the legs as well. And I am cutting these on a 15-degree angle. So on the miter saw, you're just going to turn your little base thing to 15 degrees, and that's what I cut all of my angles at. So the little supports and the legs are all at 15 degrees. So I cut these two on the 15-degree angle. You can see on the edge there, it's at a very slight angle. So I'll just stack them on top of each other, and then with a pencil, I will mark the other side, the angle that I need to cut. And your angles should also be opposite on one end. So see how that one's kind of going up, and then on the other side it is going down. So they should be kind of backwards, almost mirroring each other, if that makes sense. And then out of the scrap pieces, I'm going to make that little center part for the legs. So you're going to need a longer support, and then there's going to be a shorter support right underneath the kind of sitting part of the stool. So you're going to need 4 of those because there's going to be 2 on each leg pair. If you're interested in making one of these benches, I will leave the instructions in the description, and I will also leave all the dimensions and the lengths of everything that I used right here so you can screenshot this. So this is that center support for the legs, and I'll show you guys in just a minute how it's supposed to look. But these ones should be cut at the same angle, if that makes sense. So once all the pieces are cut, we can start assembling. So the legs almost resemble like a letter A. So you have that small center support right at the top, and then the longer middle one, and then your 2 legs. So a couple different options here. If you have a Craig jig, you can use a Craig jig to make some pocket holes. I personally like to do without the Craig jig. I feel like it just makes it easier, but if you want kind of a better looking with hidden, holes and screws and all that, you can totally do the Craig jig. I almost feel like for a distressed skinny bench, it doesn't really matter, but it's totally all preference. So I just made some pocket holes right on the outside. I know they're normally supposed to be on the inside so you can't see them. However, I had to attach my little center support, so that would not allow me to make them on the inside. Now I am placing the larger support right in the middle, and I'm just lining everything up and kind of getting an idea. I want to make sure that that top part stays really flat and flush. You could even put the bench part on above it just so that everything lays really flat, and then once you screw everything together, you want it as tight as can be, and just try and keep everything from not moving. Clamps will also help a ton. I only have 1 clamp, surprisingly. So yeah, I just kind of work with what I have. So that middle support, I just put 1 screw on one side, and then I'm going to flip it over and put the screw in the other side. And I'm going to do the same for the top as well, although I'm making sure my screw is a little bit more to the side, just because I have to screw on that little pocket hole the bench part to the top. So you can also add extra screws if need be. I ended up adding a couple more at the very end just because once we sanded it and the distressing, it started to feel a little bit wobbly. So I was like, I'm gonna give this a little bit more support. So once the legs are assembled, you can attach them to the bench part. So you can really eyeball this. I measured with my tape measure about 4 inches in, and then I just kind of drew the 2 lines where they should be exactly the legs. So I have my Hart 20-volt drill. This has easily become my favorite drill. It is so good, so easy to use, and really powerful. So it's really nice. I have a pocket hole attachment on there. It's the Craig jig attachment, and I initially used the pocket hole screws, which I believe they were 1.5 inch screws, and they went in beautifully. They worked really well. However, when I flipped the bench over, I noticed that they were just a tad bit too long. They were barely poking out. I was so disappointed because I was gonna have to redo the screws. So I took those out, got some shorter screws, and fixed that. So probably about 1-inch screws would work best. These are the brushes I love to use for distressing. I've used these in prior videos for making those little kind of wood risers. They work amazing on wood. They really kind of chew up the wood and distress it. They really give it a really cool effect. So I think those are about 12 or 14 bucks on Amazon. They're just a great tool to have. They attach right to your drill, and I love them so much. So you can really use whatever you want to distress. You cannot over distress the wood. I always think, oh, I'm overdoing it. This is too much. When pieces start breaking, and I always think I am overdoing it. But this is kind of the goal that we want, this really vintage looking look. And you really cannot over distress it, especially with brand new wood. Just go for it. And Brandon and I were actually both distressing this, and I almost wish I would have done more because it could have used more. This is what it looked like before we sanded it. It was pretty tore up looking, but once you sand it, it really does kind of bring it back to almost looking new again, if that makes sense. But you definitely cannot over distress it, so really just go for it. So I used a hammer, the wire brushes, and even a handsaw just to really chew up that wood. And then it was time to sand everything. I used a 220 grit sandpaper, and it makes it feel buttery smooth again. So you really have to get in some of those little cracks and crevices, but with the 220, it just makes it super, super smooth. So then it was time to choose a stain. I have a ton of stains in my little cabinet in the garage. The top is Golden Pecan by Varathane. The second one is Weathered Oak. And then the last one is Classic Gray. These are some of the colors that I tried. Depending on what type of wood you're using, the color will vary. So this was my favorite, surprisingly. This is Classic Gray. And with the Douglas Fir wood, I really loved how it almost had those gray undertones, but it still looked brown in some places. So I ended up going with the Classic Gray. I always apply my stain with an older towel. Always make sure that you dispose of those properly. Make sure you dispose of them properly. You can find more instructions of that online. They can spontaneously combust just because they are flammable if you leave them in a ball somewhere. So definitely be careful if you're doing that. You can also use a paintbrush. So you can see how the stain gets into those little darker areas, and those kind of scratchy looking darker areas, that is from the wire brushes. It makes those really cool kind of distressed looks. I almost wish that I would have done that a lot more, which I can always still go back and do it, but it makes the world of a difference. Another step you can also do after staining is I just took my bench out into the dirt and just put some dirt right into those little cracks and crevices. You can see on the right there that has really no dirt, and then on the left it almost fills in kind of those little gaps with just some dirt. Makes it look a little bit more kind of solid and fills in those little ridges. I really liked this. I thought that it made a huge difference, so definitely try it if you want. I had to laugh at this part because the camera footage almost looks like it's slowly moving to the side, although I didn't realize that my camera was actually falling over. So it just made me laugh though, because it's actually like really good choreography or cinematography, whatever you want to call that. Yeah, it's very smooth though. If you do try the dirt method, you can seal it with a clear matte spray. This will lock in all of the dirt so you don't have dirt falling off or dust coming off. This really seals it. However, just a heads up, it does kind of darken it a little bit. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you do use the dirt method, it will kind of darken the wood a little bit, but it still looks good. And this is the completely finished project. I feel like it is a really good dupe for the rustic antique benches. Definitely not vintage, but it has that look. And for me, this project was just about $20 just for wood. I had everything else. So yeah, it was a really great little project. I love the colors. It has like a warm brown with really cool gray undertones, and those are my favorite combinations. Such a pretty blend. And yeah, I don't have a place for this exactly yet. My house is so small, so I'm always looking for little places to style things, but it'll find its place. I hope this gave you guys a little bit of inspiration, possibly a tutorial. If you want to make this, check the description, and I will link as much as I can for you guys as well. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you say hi in the comments, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.